really sorry. I've got Heidi Alexander coming to the region today to help us launch the Northern Powerhouse Rail scheme. And I'm sorry to say that the offer of £45 billion trumps the last hour of this meeting. So I apologise. I apologise for that, but not massively, if I'm perfectly honest. I have to go at 11:15. So I'm really sorry. So we're going to rejig the agenda just slightly. So we're going to bring the partnership working bit of the meeting, which was item number 11, to the front, if that's all okay. You know that? No, do now? Great. Okay, perfect. So we will do that. Let me just jump then into, other than that, into the sort of welcome introductions, etc. Can I just first of all mention apologies from Pierce Butler, Councillor Wendy Kane, Dawn Lawson, Carly Speechley, Damien Allen, Phil Holmes, Matt Bowsher, Fran Joel, with Sarah Smith deputising, and Dr. Richard Jenkins. So they are the apologies. And just a brief intro from me. So last time round, we hosted a visit from Sir Charlie Mayfield and his team, which I thought was brill. He's since followed up and said how great the visit was. And I think we're meeting again in the not too distant future. Sir Charlie is the ex-chief exec and chair of the John Lewis Partnership. And so I'm very impressed that none of us actually harangued him about the closure of Cole Brothers and Sheffield's. Well done, everyone, for that collective work of self-restraint. They've recently published the government-backed Keep Britain Working report. He met a number of local businesses from across South Yorkshire and heard firsthand about the challenges that they face, we face, and the work we're doing under that partnership, under this partnership. Because of how well we're doing, essentially, he wants us to work with him and his team as a national vanguard, which is a brilliant, I think, recommendation for all the work that we're doing, everything you in this room and everybody else is doing. So thank you very much for all of that. So we're waiting to hear from DHSC about the second year funding for our Health and Growth Accelerator, which is vital supporting all of that work, but just wanted to kind of let you know about all of that. But thank you for all the work that you put into that visit and all the other things you're doing besides, which mean that we are at the forefront of all of that work. It's brilliant to see. Item number 2 then, any declarations of interest to be shared? Anyone? A usual question about anyone buying shares in drug companies over the last few weeks or months? No? Good. And then on to item number 3, which are minutes of the meeting. So to receive minutes of the meeting held in public on the 25th of November 2025. Anybody disagree with any of those minutes? Any changes, objections? Everyone happy? Brilliant. In terms of the action log, there's nothing to highlight. Actions are updated within the log that are shared with the paper. So unless anyone's got any questions about any of that. No? Brilliant. Okay, in which case on to item number 4, which is questions from the public. So to receive questions from the public, I think we've got two. Have we got 2? Sorry, there's a pillar in the way. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Apologies. We've got 2 members of the public in attendance: Chris Brown from Living Together and Abayomo Akinsumino. Sorry, have I? Thank you very much. Apologies if I pronounced that wrongly. From Healthcare Limited, but you haven't submitted any questions unless you want to ambush us all right now. No. No, bro, thank you very much. Well, really nice to have you, and thank you for making the time to be here. Really appreciate that. That's great. Okay, in which case, on to what should have been item number 5, but will instead be item number 11, just to surprise Marianne. So over to you.
Morning, everybody. First, I'm quite excited. Okay, everybody can hear me okay. So hopefully you'd had an opportunity to have a look at the paper that we've shared ahead. What I'm going to do, if it's okay with everyone, is just pick out a few key points, and then I'm going to focus on the draft criteria in particular, and then the ask of you as a board and the recommendations. So the purpose of the paper is really to provide an update since the last board late November on the work that we've been doing to look at how best to inform a refresh that will strengthen our partnership working for South Yorkshire for health. And so if you remember in November, we kind of confirmed the consensus that this felt like the right time to do that. And there are kind of increasing opportunities for us. So thinking about how we align with the emerging South Yorkshire strategy, the local growth plan, which we heard a little bit more detail about in November, and also the opportunity we've got to support the delivery of the South Yorkshire Health is Wealth report. And at that time, we agreed that we would formulate a joint working group in order to look at what the kind of process might be to refresh our arrangements. And so we have brought that kind of joint working group together, and we've worked considered in there. So things like the breadth of our partnership working today, the common areas of purpose across our partners, the acknowledgement of and understanding the need to really understand the work that's happening across each of our places, and where some of the work's starting to add value across South Yorkshire, and it talks about things like the Tobacco Alliance. We've used all of the output of those conversations to inform the development of a draft set of criteria. And if you look at page 5 and 6 in the paper, that's where we've described those criteria. And I thought what might be helpful is just for me to give you a quick overview of them, because the ask of you today is to really consider them, and where we'd like to get to is an agreed set of criteria that we can then use to steer our next steps in terms of guide what we do around refreshing our arrangements. So the first criteria is about being focused on strategic areas of common purpose. So they're the things that all partners think are strategically important. So if you remember the Venn diagram, things that we'd identified in the middle. So today they've been things such as work and health, prevention, children and young people's agenda. There are other things coming through. So some of those things we're going to hear about today, such as housing, and then we've also got things potentially on the horizon, thinking about things like health, criminal justice, and you will know of others. The second criteria is about being outcome focused. So this was a thread through all of the conversations about the refresh, about absolutely ensuring that we're focused on our shared outcomes, and an opportunity that we've got to refresh our outcomes framework, to connect it into the work that's happening more broadly around the emerging South Yorkshire strategy and the outcomes that are being identified through that, and to look at potential future opportunities around the iteration of the integrated settlement. The other thing that came through was the importance of focusing on outcomes that really matter to people that live in South Yorkshire. And I'm looking at how we set the approach and the tone in our way of working that's about enabling involvement in the way that we work. The third, and I think possibly the most difficult to articulate, so you might need to forgive me around the wording on this one, is how we work together, being part of that system response to improving health outcomes and reducing inequalities, and how we do that in a way that's absolutely supportive and connecting. So thinking about, how our health and wellbeing boards and place partnerships connect with what our refreshed arrangements are for South Yorkshire Partnership working across health. I think we've been on a bit of a journey with that. And then in addition to that, really focusing at a South Yorkshire level on the things where we can collaborate and add value together. And that with that, I think comes also that kind of balance in approach in terms of thinking about the breadth of our strategic alignment, which has been quite beneficial for South Yorkshire so far, and balancing that, having more specific deliverables that we work on where we have identified we can add value together at a South Yorkshire level, and being clear about what our delivery plans look like for those, and what the success measures and what shared outcomes we're contributing towards. The next one's about being agile and forward looking. So that's about operating with agility, facilitating that shared learning, look at how we scale up things that work. That's also about horizon scanning and actually being ready to kind of seize opportunities both locally and nationally. And I think we've got some good examples of that. So you mentioned the Growth Accelerator, and I think, that was one of the things that we mobilised quite quickly together around to align into the kind of Pathways to Work programme. The next one's about creating space for collaboration and innovation and continuous learning and improvement. And that's about providing opportunities for partners to be able to connect around some of the large and significant strategic agendas. So the example I gave there was around the work and health, and thinking about the work that we're doing around physical activity and how we strengthen some of the connectivity across those, and how we do that in a way that enables us to take a continuous improvement approach and identify those opportunities where we can add value by working collaboratively across South Yorkshire. Also in there, we were thinking about how we make the connections across to other assets and developing partnerships. So thinking about the Academic Health Partnership Network and the opportunity we've got there for working more closely with them around the innovation agenda. And then lastly, to be absolutely connected into the emerging South Yorkshire strategy work and the opportunity we've got there with alignment to use our kind of knowledge, skills and expertise that we have in relation to health, and to connect into that, thinking about how we support that kind of health in all policies approach. That was a really quick run through of some of the thinking behind some of those proposed draft criteria, and I'm anticipating that you will have other thoughts, and that's what we're really keen to hear today. So just before we ask for those, the latter part of the paper just gives you a bit of an update on the timeline, particularly the kind of series of conversations that we've got set up over the next few weeks as we work towards putting in place new arrangements for 26-27.
You. Okay, we've got roughly sort of 20 minutes for this part of the discussion if we need it. So that will take us up to 35 minutes past. So just if people just be conscious of that when making their contributions, I would appreciate it. Has anybody got any response to what we've just heard, please? Thank you.
Thanks, Mariana. Recognise it reflects all the conversations I think I've either been in or party to or heard about. 4 thoughts, and I'll be quick and I'll write them down properly. Just to the system thing, define. Everyone has a different definition of system. Define it. So, and there's something to nail here about place and region being additive to each other, not extracted from each other. It's dead easy to get that wrong. So we just kind of go tease our way through that one. I'm a strong advocate for a principle of lived experience in all conversations. Front things with whatever the form of lived experience is for the particular conversation, and or voluntary community sector organisations in all conversations. It's easier. We don't always get it right at place level, but it's harder at the region level for various reasons. Innovation, social innovation as much as cutting edge medtech biosciences, we all cut towards the latter. It matters for the economy, but it's the social innovations that matter for health. Last thought, reframing health as a critical economic constraint, or lack of it as a critical economic constraint for South Yorkshire PLC, aka OBR fiscal risk September 24, and a bunch of other stuff. I think kind of aligning around that, I think would help us and serve us all. That's me.
Other comments or questions? Yes, thank you.
Hi. So I think my main comment, I mean, I agree with the plan, Mariana. I think it's a fantastic plan. But my concern going forward is with the changes in the ICB coming forwards, there's going to be a lack or more challenging. It's going to be more challenging to engage clinically with, especially the health and wellbeing boards as an organisation. So I suppose we need to be thinking how that engagement's going to carry on, especially clinically. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got any comments or questions online? Please. No? No. Okay. Back in the room. Anyone got any other further comments? I think we've stunned people by putting the agenda item to the front. Oh, sorry, Steve.
Get there in the end, will I? Thank you. Yeah, a couple of comments really. First one is just gratitude really to Mariana because it's a little bit like herding cats, this conversation, isn't it? And getting to a stage with the richness and diversity of conversation that's taken place up to this point to distill them into a set of criteria has been no mean feat. So it's been a really good piece of work, and it's fundamentally important that we sort of land on a set of criteria, because if we don't get the criteria right, then actually it's going to be really difficult to sort of like generate the options that flow off this. So first point is around the gratitude. Second point is just to sort of reflect upon what Greg said about the system bit. I think we can do all the other stuff quite well, actually, and I think I've got line of sight on how this could be. There are some unknowns and uncertainties and discussions about how effective a strategic board could look like in the context of delivering the South Yorkshire strategy. But I think the hard bit of this will be the sort of the way in which we sort of hardwire this into sort of a whole system approach, and I think that's going to take some finessing, truthfully, and there will be divergent views across the system what that looks like, and I think that's the thing that we're going to have to work quite hard on to get that right and build that conversation up.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephen. I totally agree. And just in terms of the timing as well, it does feel with the ICP running for 3 years now, over 3 years, and it just feels a good time to re-energise, refocus, refresh, because the world around us is changing, isn't it? So to make sure that we find our place and have the biggest impact we possibly can. So it just feels like the right time.
I think it's fair to say the world around us is changing. I
Yes,
think that seems reasonable. Does that spark any other comments or questions from anyone? No? Well, there you go. Is that enough of a steer? Thank you very much. Okay, in which case, can I just ask the board to note the update and direction of travel, take the opportunity to share views, which we have done, and note the proposed timeline to work towards refresh and strengthened arrangements for 26-27. Everyone happy with that? Right, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, in which case we move on to item 5, which is introductions to the Working Together pathway, which is an update from Christine, please.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. This is our deep dive into Bold Ambition 4 of our Integrated Care Partnership strategy. And to remind colleagues what that actually is to collaborate and value to support our entire workforce across healthcare, voluntary, community social enterprise sectors, carers, paid and unpaid, developing a diverse workforce that reflects our communities. And so what we want to do is have a number of presentations. So I'm just going to introduce those, and my colleagues are here to help sort of bring that to life for you a little bit. So if we could just move on to the next slide though, please. I'm just going to remind us, the Working Together pathway was developed as the enabling strategy for this bold ambition. And I'm actually really glad to have followed Mariana, actually, because I think this just shows the power of working together. That's what this is about. And it's working together at all levels. So for me, in terms of leading some of this work, it's been working together strategically. It's been working together across sectors, professional groups, and through contractual arrangements, and sometimes barriers and difficulties. But those are all important things when we're thinking about collaboration and working together. So that's how I look at this. And this pathway is deliberately set out as a pathway, not a roadmap, because we had a strategic ambition in our bold ambition, didn't we? But nothing really specified about what would be the outcome from this ambition. And I think it's really important when you're working together collaboratively is we don't actually know what the outcome is. It's a little bit organic, isn't it? When you co-produce, that's the point of it, isn't it? And that's why we presented this as a pathway where we would agree shared ways of working, where we'd prioritise opportunities to work together. We'd lead by example. We'd be accountable and evidence-based, and we would plan for sustainability from the start, which is actually quite helpful. Given the current circumstances. So I just wanted to remind us of that in terms of the pathway. And really, this is about the art of what is possible through shared strategic ambition and collective leadership endeavour. And I think the presentations that will follow will give a really good example of those areas from quite different perspectives. So if we just move on to the next slide, please. So I've already reminded us what our bold ambition is. And if we could just move to the next slide, what we've done is just try and map the work that we've been doing against the bold ambitions, because I think that obviously this work spans all 4 of our bold ambitions, but also the joint commitments as well in the Integrated Care Partnership strategy. And we've had to rely on the joint commitments quite heavily. So in order to determine what we wanted to talk and showcase for you today, we have highlighted some of the areas that we've been working on there in terms of leading and adopting in health, a particular framework to help us with our anti-racism journeys, but also to reflect some of that work at the place level, which has been done very much across system partners. So it's not all been about health, and Layman will talk about that. We've also done lots of work on health and well-being and sickness and prevention around sickness absence, but we've presented on that before, so we're not doing that this time. But Joe's here who will talk about the Connecting the Unconnected, which is health and social care integration work that she's been leading on. And then really just to show what I mean by, we never anticipated that we'd end up with a women's network that spans all sectors across the whole of South Yorkshire. That isn't where we started off, but that is where we currently find ourselves. And my colleague Hannah who is the chair of that network, will just talk to you a little bit about how that is shaping up. So without further ado, I will hand over to Jo. Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm on Men in Black here. Sorry, forgive me. First time here. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me today. It is a privilege to speak with you all. It's good to see some familiar faces and making new connections. So my name's Jo Cameron. I'm the Health and Social Care Integration Programme Lead. I feel quite ignorant that I've got my back to me, so please forgive me. What I'm trying to do here is just to take you on the journey of what the actual programme took. And as Christine's alluded to, it's been about collaboration. We never kind of knew what these outcomes were really. We knew there were a ballpark in this, but we had to take that journey. So I'm a daughter of South Yorkshire. I was raised in a highly deprived area within Doncaster, but actually two things shaped my thinking in life. One of those was witnessing the miners' strike and how communities came together in adverse circumstances to be able to move forward and help each other, mainly driven through women, which is great that Hannah's here too. And I'm really glad that we've got a women's network building. But the other one was around how people were reinventing themselves. And the key moment was education and development and the opportunity to get to that point, because we don't all start off in a certain point. I'm going to do my Chris Whitty now. So next slide, please. I have to go again. So what I thought I'd start with is collaboration takes many forms and you really have to work together. And I think it's an ode to people who I've worked with over the last 2 to 3 years. But this story began back in 2017. And it's just to relate to you how really difficult it is in terms of trying to get right into communities. But it's not about that they are hard to reach, it's how hard we need to work to get to those people. So that term kind of sometimes doesn't sit that well with me, because actually what I think is it's our role to get into these spaces. And for me, it's about community and witnessing their story. And one of the things that really came through on this is that we need the time to listen to what people want and need. And I think sometimes, as Greg said about system and how potentially disjointed that can be, and part of the work that we're doing or we've done is to bring those communities together and bring their literally their story to life and be able to look at what they need and what they want, that creates the opportunities for them to be able to thrive. And actually the work that we're doing, I always say that I may never meet the people who this affects, but I'm really glad that it's out there, because in my life people have done things to give me the opportunities to be able to then thrive. So the position I hold is a very privileged position. And I'm just looking across at Sarah, and I've met Sarah, and I've just realised that I've met Sarah. So it's really, really good. And, you know, the people there are not just, you know, they're from colleges, universities, they're from unpaid carer organisations, they're from voluntary sector, they're working with people with dementia, they're working with people who are working in nursing, social care nursing. There's a vast amount of people that work together, need opportunities to be able to thrive. Next slide, please. And one of the ways that I just wanted to explain to you how you've got to take this forward, and it does take time and it takes effort, but it is well worth it in the long run. So the questions that we asked of this were, what are we going to do? And actually support working together was one of the main areas. It's to really bring together people to be able to give them their voice. We're there as facilitators to that. We will lead that and we will spearhead it, but actually we need to listen to people and communities, because they'll make the change and they'll give you the answers to that. How we're going to do it is involving people both paid and unpaid. It's good to see Kate here, who's a strong advocate of unpaid carers, which are a really important part of our community, and sometimes I think are not quite heard and brought to the surface to be able to support them. But I would say that 1/3 of this group inside here is actually caring for somebody or about to care for somebody, and the next 2/3 will actually find themselves in that position within the next 5 to 10 years. Forgive me, I'm looking at age ranges here. So why are we going to do it? To improve people's lives in communities. Why do we do the work that we're doing? If we don't improve people's lives, then I kind of don't understand understand the situation that it is. The stakeholders there is kind of all the stakeholders that were involved in this, a vast amount, and my thanks to them for giving their time. How did we do it? We experimented and learnt together. We had a very clear vision of what we wanted to do together. We shared our challenges and our strengths, and we ebbed and flowed with each other, and we actually sat and listened to get to know each other's stories, because they're the most important things. And one of the learning points in this is about doing what's known as system thinking, and we've got one of our colleagues, Claire Clark, who's a specialist in this area. And when you talk about how disjointed a system can be, actually system thinking gives you the overview of all that. Where does the most activity exist? And actually, and I'm open to argument on this, it happens in communities. So that's where the work is based. So I think it speaks to what Marianne was saying earlier. Next slide, please. So this is one of the parts around integrated neighbourhood teams, which has become quite a buzzword at the moment, but actually integrated neighbourhood working from a workforce perspective is really important, and we're currently doing some work around delegated healthcare activity, and that's for 2 home care providers within Sheffield that are really pushing the boundaries on this and starting to support discharges with things like NIV, cough assist and oxygen therapy. So that's actually skilling our social care workforce to work with our healthcare professionals to be able to do that type of care within homes, their actual homes, which throughout, and we know about acute trusts and the way of discharge and things like that, but actually what it's about is upskilling workforce and getting them signed off on things that they need to be able to do. We're also working with Be Caring, which is another home care company, and they're doing pack training with Shoe, which is around with Sports England, so that's part of theirs. And actually what that's about, physical activity, keeping people physically fit in their home prevents, and that's been proven. So we're again, that's social care staff working with healthcare, so our physios and our occupational therapists. The educational courses are being developed with Sheffield College, again health and social care working together around career progression for young people, starting to give them a career progression in social care that then integrates into health. We're also re-engineering the financial flows. Wow, what a minefield, but there we go. That's and that's one of the things that I bring here is I'm smiling at you, Chris, in terms of CHC and things like, but let's head it, let's go in, let's go and have a look, and that's what we're doing. And our Sheffield colleagues are really being helpful in that, coming to the table from an executive level and starting to unpick what that looks like and how we can support each other. Alongside all of that is research studies. So Sheffield Hallam University are undertaking research right the way through this. One of the most progressive parts is advanced nurse practitioners based in care homes, actually based in care homes. We are seeing some really strong outcomes from that now. The support and training, both health and social care staff, assessing and prescribing actually there. That's now taking pressure from GPs. The GP involved in this is absolutely all over this and really enjoying the fact that this relationship is building and making a difference. We funded, DHSC have also funded now social care nurses for prescribing. That's a massive step forward in terms of preventative work and getting whole system working. Again, it's being researched by NAHR, etc., etc. This has received national recognition from Skills for Care, and it's actually held up as a national trailblazer, one of 2. And also the Queen's Institute for Community Nursing are taking a real key eye on this. To the right-hand side gives you a membership, and one of our keen supporters around this is Cathy Winfield, who is our chief nurse, and obviously Christine Joy sat next to me. So, you know, it's a really collaborative piece of work. Next step, please. So the next one is commitment to carers. This is about unpaid carers, but also working unpaid carers. In a recent staff survey within the ICB, it's 42.8% of people identified as being carers that work. So they go home, they finish their job, they go home and they're actually caring for somebody. It's a major impact on sickness, people reducing their hours. So from a workforce point of view, it's really key. And if you help unpaid carers organisations, you help that by fault, really. And so we need to think about this. So there was, how are we going to do this? So one of the parts was a kind of, people don't recognise themselves as carers. So it was just, oh, I'm looking after my mum, or I'm looking after dad, or I'm looking after a neighbour. But actually you are a carer and you need to be recognised as that. So one of the things that we did was work with our primary care colleagues and did some lunch and learn sessions, just how to get people registered. And if they were saying, oh, my back's hurting, hang on a minute, why is your back hurting, and exploring that, which GPs and, you know, AMPs, etc. do really well. And actually, if they say, yeah, but I'm caring for somebody, okay, get them registered. So the next time that they ring up, they get access to appointments and able to do that through that route. So it's those type of things that happen on the ground that make the difference. So carers partners in Barnsley, so our Barnsley colleagues out there at the Barnsley Trust, they've developed the carers partner, which basically means that when somebody goes into hospital, they become a carer partner. They're involved, they get their parking paid for, they get meals, they're able to stay with people. Think about that. You know, staying with somebody and caring for them, involved in their care planning, involved in their care. The pressure comes out of ward staff, but it also lets ward staff know about that person, so it makes it really personalised. Amazing work at Barnsley. We did 2 unpaid carer conferences, and we paid for unpaid carers, so we took the care over from them and got them into the space, because that's another thing that you need to do. How do you get the people that it affects the most at the door? You bring them in through the door. Then there's the art psychotherapy placement. So this is a major coup for us, because basically Crossroads Rotherham have facilitated art psychotherapies working with the students. They don't attract any tariff whatsoever, so that's an inequality. So what we need to do is get that a model built so that we can show that this really works. And what does that give the people of our communities? You're going into communities and you're working with them. So we're waiting for that, and that's covered by research as well. One-to-one meetings with employers to really explain about what a working unpaid carer goes through. Raising awareness, guidance and information packs. It's got its own website, supported through Carers UK, and we do development at work with them. This has received national recognition from NHS England, and it's been nominated, and I will visiting the King and Queen on the 11th of February, and I'm hoping to raise the profile for South Yorkshire there around that and all the good work that the organisations do. Again, all the organisations involved are listed to the right. I just wanted to be able to give credit to them, because it's them that make this happen. Next slide, please. And your final one. So this is about social care placement expansion. You might think, why on earth would we do this? But what it's about is enabling healthcare students to experience actual social care placements. It's really important, this part, because what we're looking is it's developed with students, with the local authorities, with care providers. And actually what we're doing is taking them into real live settings of social care, so they can look at what I call the 360 loop. They're providing healthcare, but what does that then mean for that next journey? How do we make that loop for them to make sense for them? And the early feedback that we're getting is they're finding it quite something, and starting to realise what community work looks like. And once they come out of acute trust, they're seeing what benefits they can give, and they're actually getting inspiration now to say, oh, we could do this project, we could do that, which is amazing for students. Various universities involved. The other thing that they've done is we've stepped outside of South Yorkshire, apologies, because our universities outside of us actually have our residents go to those universities. And if you've got somebody who's from a deprived area or doesn't have much income, actually coming home and staying at home and doing a placement doesn't cost them, because they're back home with mum and dad, nana, granddad, whatever. So actually reaching outside is the right thing to do, because we're still supporting our people. We've got a delivery model. We've moved funding from local authorities we've moved funding to local authorities from health to be able to facilitate this. And the brilliant Jen Bedford is flying with this. We've got toolkits online, but it's also as well the adoption of a safer learning environment charter, really important for students. They feel safer where they're learning. And then the highlight aspect again goes back to that art psychotherapy. I can't say how much that's going to my crystal ball tells me it's going to make a difference, but it just felt right. Kate facilitated that, Helen Batty at Shoe. So we really got together and made this happen. And the way that we made this happen was to actually fund very small tariff for this to happen. And I mean a very small tariff. So the thinking, we need to change that and get that thinking. And I've just seen Rachel Leslie on the call. So it speaks to the development of there as well, the Creative Health Enabling Plan, I hope. So we'll be able to feed that through. And again, all the people that have been involved in social care placement, and it is going from strength to strength, all those people on the right hand side. So, you know, I've tried to cover the whole of South Yorkshire and get something happening in every area, but hopefully you'll find this interesting, and just thank you for your time today. Any questions?
Well, should we do questions each individual section? That feels more sensible, doesn't it? Because there's a lot of information in there. So any comments or questions, please? Yes.
Yeah, I'm obviously, you've name dropped me a few times, Joe, so I feel like I need to say something. It's already made a difference. So our 2 placements started on the 7th of January, and they're going to be working with our unpaid carers. Just those 2 placements for 40 weeks is going to help 400 carers a year, which is amazing. They're working with our bereavement group, so people that have been caring for years, they're bereft, they don't know what to do. So each one's getting tailored package, so whatever they feel is going to help them. And obviously it's a mutual benefit because they're getting the advantage of working out in the community. So it's already making a difference, and it's only 2 weeks in. So, but I've got to say credit to Jo. She's a big advocate for unpaid carers, and couldn't do the work we do without her. And obviously to Jen as well. She's made it possible. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Angela.
Yes, thank you so much, Jo, for highlighting this. It's obviously super. It speaks to the work I do at Sheffield City Council. I think the statistics say that it takes any person 2 years to realize that they are a carer and recognize that they are a carer and come forward and say, I need help. Because we all tend to kind of just get on with it and support our family. I think it's really important also to ensure that this interconnects with all the other work that we do, because it does. Because if you are a carer, how does that impact your job? How that impacts your mental health? So all the other bits of work that we're doing in terms of health and supporting healthy South Yorkshire is really important. I would be interesting to see how children who are carers fit into this, because they are often not, at the top of the agenda. We've done quite a lot of work in Sheffield, and we recognise them as a protected, area. But yeah, it impacts incredibly on, going to school, absence, and therefore life opportunities later on. So it would be really good to also do a bit of a more, I know you've done it already.
Yeah, so young carers are involved. So one of the things that we did with the Commitment to Carers Partnership was to bring all age. So it was cradle to grave, as we say. And we brought that all together. So all the local authority representatives of care involved, which does connect through to young carers. Sarah Gowan, who works in Sheffield, she's a really good advocate, and she's joined. What we did in Commitment to Carers was we put each of the places, organisations around young carers together, and they were able to create, and they're continuing to do that now. They do the work.
Can I just take Greg? Let's see, Chris.
Really briefly, Joe, thanks. That was amazing. I learned a lot, actually. It's genuinely new stuff to me, which is great. What resourcing was obviously one of the answers to this question, but easier said than done. What else limits the transition from what's clearly good to amazing? What messages would you want to land with folk?
Bit of a difficult one, really, Greg, but unfortunately with the changes with the ICB, we're now in a position where the programme will no longer exist. So I'm sorry to bring that to the table, but I suppose really what it is for me is about getting partners to understand how that then transitions into work. But it does need support. I'm not going to skirt around it. I am a Yorkshire person, and I kind of speak from the hip, is it does need support. So it needs someone to support the continuity, because you have to have somebody at the heart of it driving it and holding the partners together and holding people together so that they continue to have the voice and inform and influence what's happening. So, you know, fundamentally, you do need drivers of people to be able to do this with the right mindset.
So, Joe, thanks for your passion and energy, and thanks for looking at me when you talked about money. So, two comments on that. So I don't want to leave it unanswered. So I think, but this is a great example where we're pushing boundaries. How our organisation's set up isn't always conducive to innovation and working differently. So I know we've been pushing boundaries in this project. The key to any long-term sustainability is always evaluation with these projects, so we can understand what impacts make the differences we need to make. So my question is just about evaluation, Jen.
So it's currently, they're all running, and we've got research being held up by Sheffield Hallam University. So they're doing that evaluation and that impact work. But because it's been cut short, or it will do, but actually what I'm trying to do is continue that through partners, and becoming quite clever around business continuity, whatever that may be. So it's about thinking about that really and getting that to happen so that the impact assessments can continue to gather information and feed into wherever they need to go for investment.
Sarah, and then unless there's anyone online who wants to ask a question, we'll move on to the next session, if that's right. Sarah.
Thank you so much, Joe. What an amazing presentation. And when I came in here, I was like, I know you, but I couldn't pinpoint you. And it's because you helped us massively when I was in my previous role, that was a cabinet member of adult social care in Doncaster. And, you know, one of my passions is making sure that unpaid carers do get the right support and well-being and everything like that. Some of the things I just wanted to emphasize, and I think it would be, you know, remiss of us as a panel, as a committee, is that it does need sustainability, and you know, you, Joe, as well, the leadership that you brought to it. You know, you really I saw firsthand how you were kind of going from different place to place, offering your support to other people, because it is hard work and different systems behave in different ways, different places behave in different ways. Like, how do we cut through? How do we get that collaboration between place? And a couple of things, some of the links, so the integrated care system carers webpage, all the information's out of date or there's none on there. So that needs to be updated, I think, as an action for the group, because we have all this amazing work, but it's not out there, or it's not on the websites that's in the papers. Also, I was wondering what a question is, what are we doing to keep track with, so unpaid care is one of the core things, is that they have rights, legal rights. A lot of employers and stuff don't realise that. What are we doing in South Yorkshire as a place that, because that's part of the puzzle. And then I was also wondering, is there anywhere where I can find the data or whatever about primary care launch and learning sessions of making sure that carers are getting registered at their GP practice, because that's something that I found historically quite difficult. Yeah.
So the first one is how to bring people together is around collaboration. There's already the Commitment to Carers Partnership. Bal's part of that. So that's already there and embedded. So Bal attends that. He's also a member of that. The website is updated, so I'm not sure if I'll show you through it. I'm more than happy to meet with you, Sarah, and walk you through that, because it might be that the ICB IT system and everything have switched certain things off. I don't know yet, but it's all in there. In terms of the lunch and learn sessions, again, the partnership has got all that information. So Bal will have received that. So either a conversation with me. And I suppose really to keep things going is what I've just said previously, is somebody needs to head that up and drive it forward and be able to recognise, and all the facts and figures, there's various different places that we can get them from. In terms of the Centre for Care that's based in Sheffield, we partnered with them to do the unpaid carers dashboard. So that's there. But yeah, more than happy. We've got each other's details and I'm more than happy to walk you through that. Might be my fault then. I'm not an IT savvy person, so forgive me, I'm more a pen and paper. But no, I'm sorry if that's not done the link, and I'll get that rectified for you. All right.
Well,
thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, everyone. No one online? Can't see any hands. No. Okay. In which case, can we move on to Loma, please? Over to you.
Thank you. So I'm Loma Jones. I'm the South Yorkshire ICB's Equality, Diversity, Inclusion, Belonging Lead. And so I'm giving a system-wide anti-racism update today. Sorry. So I've covered partner working, but there'll obviously be kind of some things that you're probably aware of from your particular areas that probably exceeds the presentation. So please do update around anything you feel hasn't been covered. I've been kind of doing some scoping, and there is a little bit more of a lean towards what's happening in Sheffield and Doncaster here, just because they have such big partnership working projects happening in those two areas, but they do kind of spill into Rotherham and Barnsley as well. And then obviously they all have their own work going on. So I'm trying my best to cover as much as possible without taking up too much of your time. So could I have slide 2, please? Thank you. So just having a little bit of a spotlight of a few things on here. So one thing I'm just putting up is that there's been some media attention for the Barnsley Trust in December, just because they've got some focus on their No Place for Hate campaign, within which they've situated their anti-racism work, and it kind of discusses their adoption of the North West BAME Assembly anti-racist framework, which same as Doncaster, they're kind of promoting allyship and embracing the uncomfortable. And I thought it was just nice to kind of show that they're having some public facing coverage, because I think that's really important to keep kind of the public and all the different partnership organisations kind of aware that these things are kind of taking place and keeping going. I also wanted to spotlight in the wider presentation, which has been sent to all of you, the University of Sheffield's work, just because they have their race equality action plan and 5 priorities within that. And it's a really wonderful live document that you can go and look at. And they constantly update it. It was last updated, pardon. My voice was fine until I started talking. On the 5th of May. So they're constantly updating it, and it's a really nice, you can see the breakdown with all of their priorities, and they let you know exactly where they've gotten with each of those aims underneath all the priorities. So it's a really good way to see how they're kind of working through their whole action plan around anti-racism. The Sheffield Race Equality Partnership has been doing some work very recently with the University of Sheffield and Learn Sheffield around their Anti-Racist Education Alliance Sheffield. It's termed AREAS, and this kind of kicked off in February 2025, focusing on anti-racism in the education systems of Sheffield. A few people have mentioned here how important education is in terms of getting any kind of projects embedded and make sure people of all ages are involved. It has its kind of main points listed there on the slide. So they're developing a working plan to advance recruitment, retention and progression of school leaders from Black and global majority backgrounds. That's in line with the Race Equality Commission's Actions 6, 7 and 10. They are acting an advisory role and a critical friend to Sheffield City Council and Learn Sheffield when meeting the other REC recommendations, and working in partnership, sharing best practice providing a safe space and co-creating action plans and strategies. So I just thought that's a very nice piece of working together that's kind of kicked off quite recently, that it's nice to bring light to. So can I have the next slide, please? So looking at Team Doncaster's work, obviously the Sheffield Race Equality Partnership is doing a huge amount of different pieces of work. That's just one of the kind of latest things to come out, and a really important one. Team Doncaster has made massive strides in their partnership working. There's a few kind of major things on that timeline around what they've kind of been doing to build to where they are at this point. The partnership, for those who might not be aware, brings together Doncaster Bassetlaw Teaching Hospital, Rotherham Hospital, Doncaster and South Humber NHS Foundation Trust, City of Doncaster Council, the South Yorkshire ICB, Doncaster Culture and Leisure Trust, the Doncaster Social Isolation Alliance and Volunteer Bank, South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue, South Yorkshire Police, DN Colleagues, Sheffield Hallam University, University of Sheffield, and the Black Leadership Group. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but I do think it's important just to recognise how many people are working together on this, and how much of a good example it is of something where the partners have come together and really consistently now have been working towards this one shared anti-racist goal in a really amazing way. They've had to make a few adjustments recently that I think are important to note. They originally had kind of 3 working groups. The messaging group, they feel they are kind of getting their message out there now. They've pared that down, and now their 2 focuses are recruitment and progression and education. And I think it's important to note that education is coming up over and over again, and you'll see it as I go through this. It's a really clear South Yorkshire-wide theme that is coming out of all the anti-racism work. They're continuing their work with those steering groups. It's also important to note that this was being coordinated by Fiona Leahy, who is now no longer in post, and she's done incredible work in this area, but they will have to shift quite a lot because that role no longer exists. So now they're kind of making their meetings bi-monthly instead of monthly, and also asking partners to really importantly kind of step into that kind of driving space a lot more, because obviously it's necessary to make sure the momentum isn't lost after they've kind of had so much success so far. It's also really important to note that their video on allyship was shortlisted for the Excellence in Community Partnership Award at the National BAME Health and Care Awards 2025, which is really nice recognition for their partnership working. And if you haven't been able to have a look at that video, I really, really do recommend it. It's not very long and it's really, really impactful. Could I have the next slide, please? Now to look a bit at what we've been doing in health. The ICS has been focusing on getting all the acute mental health trusts together, as I'm sure you're well aware from previous updates, to progress through bronze accreditation for the Northwest BAME Assembly Anti-Racist Framework. I'm hoping most people have heard us mention that before, but for anyone that hasn't, we're using the Northwest Framework because they have a very clear action-based set of guidelines around how you really embed anti-racism across your organizations and within your wider communities. And so we don't want to kind of redo a piece of work that's already been done. So we're going straight in, working with them, partnering with them so that they can accredit us, to show that we have kind of hit those very, very high standards that they hold. It's a really great piece of work that they've done. And importantly, a piece of work that was entirely led by global majority colleagues in their system. And that's really good learning to take into our system. So the focus areas of that are workforce inequality, cultural competence, inclusive leadership, and psychological safety. All 7 trusts in South Yorkshire, acute and mental health, are involved. I won't read you another list of trusts, but 6 of those are progressing through, and Doncaster and Bassetlaw Teaching Hospital has actually achieved that as of this month. So they are bronze accredited, they've hit all of those standards, and that's really, really kind of like a positive milestone for us now, especially because they can share that learning, because all of the trusts do work really well together, and that should help the others achieve that as well. This kind of set of working is a bit bittersweet at the moment, just because we have been giving a lot of guidance, support, and kind of funding in the short term from the ICB, the relationship that we have with the Northwest is one that kind of Christine worked really hard to make sure was supported, but this only lasts for this year. So they have the opportunity to all achieve that this year, but it's a little bit unclear going forward how that will be kind of supported and sustained in terms of particularly funding. The EDI leads from all of those areas are in a sustainable kind of working pattern, though, as of October 2025. They're now hosting their meetings on rotation. They're kind of co-owning and leading and peer supporting in that space. So as the ITB steps back, it shouldn't be an issue in terms of how they're sharing and how they're kind of working together. It's more that extra kind of additional support that is a little bit unsure going forward. However, we are expecting a few more people to be accredited, and they all will receive feedback and learning during the process of this year, regardless of their outcome. They will get a lot of feedback around how they can better achieve that anti-racism working. And obviously, some of these are absolutely huge trusts, so that's having a huge impact on workforce in general. Could I have slide 5? Thank you. This is a piece of work done by allied health professionals, and I think it's good to be reminded they're the 3rd largest employee group in the NHS. So this is a really huge proportion of our population workforce. So they've been doing some really incredible work. The work kicked off in June 2025. And the AHPs in South Yorkshire held their first anti-racism summit. So what this did was set out a timeline of anti-racism work as it relates to AHPs. It brought in the AHP board, and this is a very, very long name, so bear with me. The Chief Allied Health Professional Officers BAME Strategic Advisory Group, which I'm now going to refer to as Capo BAME SAG for the rest of this presentation. They're a really obviously important body, and they have developed the allyship charter for supporting the North East and Yorkshire Allied Health Professionals BAME network. And this allyship charter was kind of promoted at this event. It has 5 guiding principles, which kind of tie in a lot with the other anti-racism work happening, which are respect, empathy, equity, accountability, and transparency. And its 4 actions are promoting inclusion, addressing barriers, building awareness, and celebrating contributions. So that's a nice cohesive thing, again, for the allied health professionals in all their kind of diverse areas, because there's so many different professions under that. To work to and commit to together. They revisited this in December, 6 months later, to review their commitments, and they kind of built on the first to have 6 call to action themes. And they've decided that the main things that they need to work on in their professions are speaking up, behaving as an ally, reviewing policies for inclusivity, engaging with staff networks, collaborating to tackle racism, and listening to global majority colleagues. So that kind of ties into a lot of things people have already mentioned today around the fact that we need to be listening to lived experience. Allyship is coming across again, like education, across the board. And they have also collaborated with Sheffield Hallam in creating a South Yorkshire AHP's anti-racism toolkit. And that came out of the 2 events. And it's a really lovely example of, again, the partnership working that has made some really nice resources that can then be used sustainably to make sure they're working across the different professions but on the same page. Slide 6, please. Thank you so much. We had another South Yorkshire Anti-Racist Assembly on the in September, which was the 2nd event after the assembly was launched in November 24. It benefited over 180 people across all 7 trusts, primary care covering Sheffield, Bassetlaw, Doncaster and Barnsley, across social care, hospice, Sheffield City Council, Doncaster Council, Rotherham Council, Royal College of Nurses, Yorkshire Ambulance Service, South West Yorkshire Partnership Teaching, NHS Foundation Trust. And there over 10% of those involved were from South Yorkshire voluntary sector organisations. So a really good spread of partners involved. The 4 key themes emerging from that discussion were tackling racism behaviour, leadership and accountability, regional and collective action, and sharing and using resources. So again, it's just really sharing resources is something that's going really well for us across the anti-racism work, but it's something that, because of a few kind of differences in how we'll be working moving forward, is an important thing to be supported by partners going forward. And again, tackling racism behaviour. Behaviour is obviously how it's manifesting in our communities, so that comes up over and over again. And education is how we'll change that behaviour. So their priorities for action are education and awareness, as well as practical support for staff and patients, which is obviously a lot of our work. That covers most of our workforce. Maintaining focus on system-wide action and keeping the conversation alive. Because I do think it's important to note that we are shifting into times where, you know, the attitude to anti-racism work is different to how it was when a lot of these projects started, and the treatment of them is different. And so it's even more important to make sure that the positive messaging is coming out from partnership, that this is still supported. It's as important as it's ever been. Slide 7, please. And then just to kind of, for people to see in their own time, we've just got a little bit of information about different speakers. Every place base was represented at that event. They all kind of talked around their specific pieces of anti-racism work. A few good things to look at are, for instance, Sheffield Children's Hospitals developed a microaggressions reporting tool, which is something that I think a lot of partnership organisations could probably emulate. I know a lot of people have a gap between their kind of main way of addressing discipline and governance around incidents, and the fact that that has a gap when it comes to how things actually manifest, and the fact that they might not be kind of grievance level in a way that you can clearly articulate, but yet they can't just go unaddressed, and definitely not undocumented and unrecorded. So that's a really important thing, I think, for kind of shared learning. We've also had some working, again, apologies, outside of South Yorkshire, but it's open to everyone in South Yorkshire, in that the North East and North Cumbria ICB has offered out their Boost Learning Academy, which is an anti-racism learning hub, and that's available for everyone to use. They've got kind of nice e-learning video pieces that you can work through, and I think that's a really good thing for partners to be putting out there. Slide 8, and I promise I'm nearly done. So as you all hopefully have been able to see throughout the presentation, there's a lot of overlap happening between the different anti-racism patches of work happening. The South Yorkshire Anti-Racism Assembly would like to kind of align its work more closely with the other partners and ascertain how the Assembly's priorities for action for South Yorkshire and the whole of the South Yorkshire system can kind of aid and strengthen the work of those kind of place-based, really amazing sections of work, and vice versa. But that is something that still kind of needs shaping, and particularly in this difficult time with the ICB, who has been kind of holding space for that, not being able to do that going forward. I've kind of highlighted a few things around, again, just ensuring that the REP work, Team Doncaster work, the trust working around their accreditation all remains as connected as possible, asking partners to support with that collaboration and ensuring the kind of efficiency and productivity that continues as kind of times change and as our ways of working are changing. So thank you very much for listening. Take any questions.
Well, thank you very much. And just for the record, I am prepared to accept that some good things come from outside South Yorkshire. Occasionally. Thank you, that was brilliant. Comments or questions, please? Yes, please.
Loma, thanks. Really good tour through complicated, difficult territory. Two thoughts, really, questions. I was struck by what you said about the keeping it alive, and the nature of the conversation has changed. And it's just something that we all need to do to keep normalising doing this stuff. But secondly, probably harder. I think there's something, and I don't know the answer to this, but there's sort of the cut through of some of this stuff in a not white working class kind of white middle class kind of way. Said the middle-aged white dude, middle-aged middle class white dude, I might say. And just how this plays on social media and the rise of lazy racism, xenophobia, I just don't think we're on top of that at all. I don't know what the answer to that is, but there's a lot of it, and I don't think we're anywhere near being on top of that one. And again, that is a new norm that I don't think any of us are addressing properly. Don't know the answer, but it's just an observation.
No, I would agree with that. I do think.
Loma.
Pardon, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, it is on. Sorry, I forgot to turn it off. So we are kind of looking at things like language in certain areas. I know, for instance, Barnsley Hospital has specifically been looking at how they can not use words like anti-racism because they don't find it particularly applicable to the people they're speaking to in their area. I think quite a lot of the sections of work are looking at how they can make sure they are speaking to who they are actually wanting to target. I'm looking at you, Andy, because you're always telling me not to talk to the people that already know about things. But that is something that's on people's minds. But I think you are completely right in that is still circulating within the same kind of rooms, within the kind of same spaces. And I think there is a lot to be done in terms of particularly social media. Not a lot of the work that I've kind of scoped out involves social media other than just advertising what we're doing. I think there's, I think we're a million miles away from controlling the narrative around anti-racism and belonging. And I welcome anyone's thoughts on how they could contribute to that.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Anyone online? Oh, sorry, Anna. Anna, over to you.
Thanks, Oliver. So yeah, thank you so much. Such an important presentation and really heartening to see all the work that's happening. I think just a couple of points from me. Firstly, on the social media point, and I'm sure, so I'm Anna Hartley, Exec Director for Public Health and Communities from Barnsley Council. I think probably most councils do this. I can only really sort of speak for my own, but we do constant social media monitoring of any sort of racist language or any sort of concerns around that. But we've also trained local residents to be community champions who are on Facebook pages and etc. who can sort of challenge some of that racism, because obviously it's often a very much stronger voice when it comes from a local resident rather than from sort of council or other sort of statutory bodies. The other thing I just wanted to say, just to flag it to the board as a real concern from our perspective, is primary care. So I've just had a letter from all of our primary care practices in Barnsley saying that they have seen a real rise in racism, and some of the knock-on effects, apart from the fact that it's very difficult and distressing for the staff involved, is also that they're worried that staff are leaving, and that also it's harder to attract staff when there's that reputation. So we're doing a whole load of work on it, including sort of a health and wellbeing board session. But I guess I know it's a massive issue in trust, but I think as well, just to sort of flag that primary care are really feeling it as well, and based in our local community. So I just wanted to flag that to people as well. But thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you for flagging that, because I do think when I obviously come to talk about things, I'm coming to talk about like the positive things happening in the area. But I do think it's so important for us all to be noting the kind of shifts that are going in a negative direction, and the fact that we'll have to do even more work to kind of combat that going forward across all the partnerships.
I think David wants to.
Hi Anna, it was just to say we do have a South Yorkshire group that exists and sort of look at this in primary care. So we're quite fortunate. We're one of the few areas in the country that have that. As a GP myself, I have seen that. I mean, we have a very strict zero tolerance, but I know that some practices find that harder to implement than others. I suppose while I've got the mic, there is one other concern that I noted for today is, the medical training prioritisation bill. While I can understand why that's there to solve a problem of people applying for training, in itself, it is inherently kind of, you could perceive that to be racist in the fact that international medical graduates are not seen in the same, at the same level. They won't, prioritisation will be for UK trained. We have a very diverse workforce, certainly in medicine. We have 40% we rely on international medical graduates. So, there are some policy decisions that are being made that we need to be very careful about how they are enacted and what we can do to support people who are already working for us. So thank you.
Bro, did you want to come back on any of that, Lona? Don't have to.
Just thank you very much, David. I've just sent you the letter, but really appreciate that. Really helpful. Thanks.
All right. Before we move on, though, Loam, sorry, forgive me if this puts you on the spot, but just tell me anything you think we need to do, challenge this group, any way we can help. Just last comment, anything?
I think the main ways you can help are kind of similar to Joe in ensuring that there are still people to drive the work. Obviously, the ICB's kind of hand in this is only one small part, but even the partnerships that are existing and working really well are shifting. So just putting as many kind of supportive mechanisms in place to ensure that continues. And I suppose making sure that now we are seeing some really amazing pieces of work happening, that, you know, the REC in Sheffield has got traction, the Team Doncaster work has got traction, that this is now really kind of embedding itself in the community, and ideas like what's happening in Barnsley are happening more often, because this is what we say, we cannot educate people if we're only educating the kind of top of the water. We need to be permeating deeper. So that would be my ask.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think we're handing over to Hannah. Hannah, I'm really sorry. I am going to have to leave in about 5 minutes, so that's not a personal slight. Please don't take it as so apologies, but thank you very much for the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Hannah Dunn. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have me here this morning. I am the CEO of Thrive Social Capital. We work with all around South Yorkshire with a lot of ethnic minority, marginalised, very, very underprivileged communities, and support them with employment support, academics, training, upskilling, anything to do with trying to get them into the workforce. I'm also the chair of the South Yorkshire Women's Inspired Network. And can I have the next slide, please? The ethos behind this network is we are built to inspire, empower, and elevate women from all backgrounds to reach their full potential. We work based on compassion, equity, and collaboration. The main aim of this network is to remove barriers, amplify voices, and create opportunities. In this day and age, it is quite sad to actually discover that structural inequalities still do exist, gender biases still do exist in the workplace, challenges of a work-life balance still does affect women massively, and especially that is further amplified when you talk about women in senior leadership and management positions. Can I have the next slide, please? A little bit of a background about the network. So it was originally founded in 2022 by the People Experience team at ICB, and initially it was called the South Yorkshire Aspiring and Established Women Leaders Network. And it was predominantly, the membership was very NHS focused. However, leading on towards 2023, it got really popular. The People's Experience team, predominantly, especially Brigitte Caviani, who is the program's director, very soon realised that this is a network that can actually go far beyond NHS, and collaborative work was the key behind the ethos of actually expanding it and offering memberships to cross-sector memberships to women that represent various organisations around South Yorkshire. What happened in 2024, our new committee was recruited, which was a cross-sector committee. So we have representation from various sectors all over South Yorkshire. We represent the VCSE sector, the private sector, government sector, NHS, ICB, PCN. So it is a very, very collaborative effort. Initially, we started off with 400 members. However, within the course of a year, actually a little over a year, we have grown to over 670 members. That is about a 67% increase. That goes to show the need, the demand, the requirement for organisations for networks like this. The reason why we are so successful, from my perspective, I think it's not a hierarchical organisation. It is an organisation that is based on the ethos of collaboration, on equity. We believe that every sector adds value to our network. We believe in co-designing. We believe in hearing the voices of experiences and creating our workshops based on what feedback we have from our members. Our committee is represented from various sectors in South Yorkshire at the moment. We had a big, massive, large event last year celebrating International Women's Day in March 2024. And that was a very big win for the Women's Network because for the first time we had representation from all sectors around South Yorkshire being present in that space. And that was very, very insightful after we received the feedback from a lot of these organisations, because a lot of times, a lot of organisations work in silo and we don't know the good work that they're doing. And a lot of times when we work in collaboration and we work together, it aspires to lending value and improving the economy and us working together to share what are the challenges, what are the strengths that we bring to the table. So from there on, we went on to have inspirational talks, we have webinars, we have workshops that we do deliver, and that is all taking into account the feedback from our members. One of the biggest feedback we got from our members was imposter syndrome. And that is from a lot of women in senior leadership and management positions, especially when you're talking about diverse community, ethnic minority communities, and yet again, women from underprivileged areas, that's further amplified. Imposter syndrome is real. So we provided a lot of support around workshops, and that was very, very well taken. Menopause is something Brigitte Caviani, yet again, is a massive advocate for, and it has really, really, really affected a lot of us. I'm in the same boat. Before I actually joined a Women's Network, before I was introduced to the menopause sessions, I myself didn't know I was going through menopause. So I was diagnosed with dementia, and it wasn't really dementia. We were going down the route where I was having MRIs. It wasn't dementia. I was just struggling because I had menopause. A patch fixed it all up. And when you look into it, 2 out of 3 women leave the workforce, especially in senior leadership and management positions. What a loss it is to our economy, especially when you're looking at Sheffield. It's predominantly manufacturing, engineering, construction. In these sectors, women are often left very, very unheard. In these sectors, women are not represented on the tables. In these sectors, we don't have equal opportunities for progression. And I think focusing on a network like this, where women can actually come in and get the support that they need, is massively, massively beneficial. My takeaway on one of the workshops that we do deliver, we have a lot of women coming in as well, senior leadership ladies in different sectors coming in and attending our webinars. We have guest speakers coming in from all sectors. And I think our biggest accomplishment is to create a safe space where leaders not only talk about their the wins, they also talk about their struggles and challenges. And as a business owner, I think it's so important to hear about what the other person's struggles and challenges are. We go through so many seminars, we go through so many events where everyone's amplifying each other and everyone's talking about each other's wins. And sometimes as a small business owner, or even as a successful business owner, it is very, very lonely. And you think, I'm having all these challenges. Why is no one else having those challenges? But sometimes it is really beneficial to bear it all down and be vulnerable and be in that space and show other people that I'm struggling. I struggle at times, but having that support system, having that network where we can have these open, honest conversations is so critical. Neurodiversity being 100% realistically supported in the workforce? I would say no, it's not. And I think there's a lot of work to be done, but I think what we've done is we've opened those honest, open conversations and led with it. And those are the ones that are going to lead towards beneficial change going forward. Can I have the next slide, please? So far to date, we've had several different workshops, that's including neurodiversity. We also focus on workplace well-being, which is very, very critical, especially when you talk about ethnic minority communities. You talk about a lot of organizations are talking about diversity, about including women from diverse communities. What is the support? What is the cultural competency in the organizations? What is the understanding of the barriers facing that woman when she comes into that role, especially when she goes into the leadership management position? And I think having a real firm understanding and believing in changing realistically not just as a tick box activity, is really, really critical as well. So that's enabled us to have very clear conversations as well with different sectors and determine a little bit more about what the challenges of the sectors are as well and how we can actually add value to the different organizations. I think what's been really amazing as well is we're just not inclusive of women. We actually welcome allies on our tables as well. So these are men sitting on boardrooms, sitting on tables in senior leadership management positions. And it's really critical for them to listen to our side of the story as well as to what are the barriers and how we can work together and collaborate together to improve the workplace circumstances and help women through progression as well. Another thing that we're very, very passionate about is young people as well, predominantly young women. We talk about education all the time. However, when we look into education, the barriers are there. Post-COVID, cost of living crisis, not everyone can go ahead and go get a university degree. They'll come up with a massive loan. What can we do? How can we work with young people to provide them the right support, the right mentorship opportunities to move further and towards a meaningful progression in life? Can we have the next slide, please? So this is my passion project. This is something that really, really is very near and dear to my heart. In November 2025, we launched a program that was called Walk in My Shoes. And what we've proposed to the network, because a lot of our members are from senior leadership and leadership positions that represent various sectors of South Yorkshire. That is a very, very strong network that we've got. Why not tap into the skills of these ladies and request them to come in as mentors, not only for the young people that we have on our youth advisory board, but also to be mentors to other young women who are probably struggling or probably looking for a career progression, but don't know the means and ways to get there. And I think it's really beneficial as well to learn what a day in somebody's life incorporates, especially for the young women. I've got 2 daughters myself. And as she was looking into a degree apprenticeship, my older one, she was quite clueless and lost. And I think with the young people, a lot of times they don't know what the opportunities are out there. Let's see in NHS, we don't know what the opportunities are for what is the training provided, what is the support provided, what are the degree apprenticeship routes. And it's always really beneficial and very insightful for young people to actually go in there, spend a day and see, oh wow, this is for me. And sometimes this is not for them. So they've not wasted 4 years of their education and gone into a role that's really not something for them. And that's also created massive progression routes as well, because not only are you gaining mentorship experience, you're also gaining your networking experience, you're building relationships. And I'm a firm believer of collaboration and building relationships and networking that's going to actually last a lifetime. Another thing that is really, really beneficial out of this, walking in our shoes, is we've actually started working with a lot of other networks as well, a lot of other women's network, predominantly the Simca Women's Network, which has been massive supporters of our work. We collaborate with them. We share insights on where the economy is going, what is the 10-year growth plan, how can we influence that and affect that into our mentorship scheme, because obviously when we're training our young people, when we're giving them careers advice, it needs to be in alignment with where the whole economy is going in the next 10 years. Otherwise, there's no point putting in young people into jobs that are going to be redundant in the next 3 years, 5 years. So these collaborations add so much value to what we're providing at the moment. Can we have the next slide, please? This is a little bit of an insight about the sessions that we have delivered to date. So wellbeing sessions, again, like I said, is something that is so critical, especially with minority communities. Even men in general, a lot of us don't talk about mental health. A lot of people, especially in senior leadership and management role, feel very vulnerable, even acknowledging the fact that it might be a mental health issue. They might be going through stress, depression, anxiety. In our culture, we don't even get our young people diagnosed. So our children often go undiagnosed, whether it's autism, dyslexia. And can you imagine when that young person goes off to college, goes off into a workforce, they're really falling apart because they don't have any right support going forward into employment. We need to know how to address our workforce and how to better support them and how to help them into progression in alignment with their needs and requirements, which needs to be totally genuine as well. And it's all about co-designing with our members, with our partners, and seeing what the what the members really need, and actually going ahead and providing the right courses, the right workshops that actually align in with the requirements of the members. Can we have the next slide, please? So almost wrapping it up, we have another International Women's Day celebration coming in on March the 9th. So I do extend to everyone out here to please come and come over and attend our celebration. We have a QR code on the next page. That is a book with a slide to go ahead and partake in the Women's Day celebration. I would also extend an invitation for everyone over here to join our network as well, because the more we collaborate, the more beneficial this is for everyone. And we need to gain traction. We need to work collaboratively. And I think one of an example that I could probably give is for our upcoming Women's Day celebration, we have the likes of Catherine Hammond, the CEO of Simca, who signed up as a guest speaker for my leadership panel, which is really, really beneficial, because that is giving the opportunity to not just our members, to our committees and everyone present out there to ask those questions and have access to these leaders that they probably otherwise would not have access to. We also have Ross Jones, the mayor of Doncaster. So she's the elected mayor. She's doing immense work for Doncaster at the moment. We have the airport opening up. We have the biggest AI centre opening up. We've got warehouses. There's so much going on. And I think it's just so beneficial when we look at the bigger economic picture, progression route, academics, workforce. These are where the jobs are going to be created. This is where we're going to add value to our economy. So come in, let's work together and let's collaborate, because what we can do something is so powerful, and working jointly together, like all the ladies before me said, can lead to a bigger outcome. And that's what we critically need. Can we have the next page, please? So common allyship, inclusivity, wider reach, that is our strategy going forward. We need a wider reach. We need to go all over South Yorkshire. The work that we're doing so far, we've had people coming in into our seminars from West Yorkshire, just because of the fact that the space that we've created is so inclusive, it is so realistic. And I think it just all goes back to the passion and the ambition and the vision of all the people that are on the table, especially with Christine Joy. She's been absolutely so supportive. Christine, I can't thank you enough for all your support, all your backing. And Christine's also a member of our committee and a very dedicated member, not just a member in essence, as to she's totally dedicated to moving this forward. To us, it's not just a network, it's a legacy that we want to leave behind to all the women out there. We want it to actually realistically benefit everyone. We want to create a safe space, a collaborative space for everyone to come in and seek from it what they want to seek. Brigitte Caviani from Christine Joy's team has been instrumental. I can't thank her support enough. She's not here today, but just the passion around how can we move forward with this. We've got Louise Berwick, who is my deputy chair, phenomenal, from Primary Care Doncaster. So this goes to show, even on our committee level, we've got these collaborations of these absolutely remarkable women who bring so much to the table, to a point where Brigitte Caviani's even brought her whole team into the picture where we were struggling with admin work or any support that we needed, just to drive this forward. And this goes to show that this is a movement. This is a movement that's not to be stopped. And with the South Yorkshire Women's Network, I would say we're not here to fix women. We're here to fix the conditions that are barriers from us thriving forward. So let's work together. Let's work collaboratively in this space to move forward with it. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for that presentation. Sorry, I'm taking over from Oliver in case you haven't spotted. So I'm Chris Edwards, the interim chief exec of the ICB, just for people who haven't met me before. So Christophe, thanks for the presentation. Let's open up for questions then. Sorry, can we take the presentation down just so I can see faces on the screen as well? Any questions in the room? Anybody? Comments? I've just got to brush your hands. I'll take Loma first.
I'll go second because I just have a comment. So question.
No, go first. Just fire away, and then I'll.
Just because obviously I've been involved with this, and I thought it was just a really important point after we've spoken so much about different areas, whether it be carers or anti-racism or partnership working. The fact that I think a gender group is really important, because obviously there are two main gender groups. Not everyone is within them, but they are two very vast groups of people. and focusing on one of those, kind of inevitably the one where people are on the wrong end of a gender pay gap, where people are the wrong end of kind of most power dynamics and most large organizations, is a really, really intersectional space, because this is such a huge proportion of our people in South Yorkshire that these things like neurodiversity, like menopause, all the different possible groups are going to be found within that. And I do think this is a space that is grown so much in the past year, like Hannah said, but there's so much potential for that, just because the kind of intersectional opportunities to work within that are kind of endless. And these people are already kind of embedded in workforce. And the point I wanted to make around all the neurodiversity work that has come out of it, because there's been so much interest from within the current members, is that women in particular are diagnosed so much later when it comes to neurodiversity. So they're already in our workforce, they're already trained, they're already in positions of power, responsibility, working hard all over, but yet they're predominantly affected by something that only really now is gaining a lot of kind of traction in terms of being recognized. The fact that we're now recognizing, I'm sure the clinical staff will kind of know more about this, the fact that women are often presenting very differently with neurodiversity, people of color are presenting so differently. And I think it's important to have these very wide arching spaces that seem like a really, really loose kind of circle to draw around a massive, massive group of people. But actually that looseness is powerful, because it allows so many other things to manifest in that space.
Thank you. I'll just take a couple more comments and we'll move to a break. So I think, you okay? Do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, and lots of the things that you said resonate obviously with me. But yeah, and I will look it up, and it would be interesting to see how it interacts with other organizations in the various localities. Because for example, I am part of the Violence Against Women and Girls group in Sheffield, and there are lots of organizations and voluntary groups that are in that group. And so I'm going to kind of maybe when we have a meeting next month, I'm gonna, don't know if you're already in touch with them, but it would be a good group, because there are people from several organizations that come together, and there are representations, from domestic abuse organizations, but also the university, and we come together on that particular topic. But I'm sure that those women would really appreciate the support. So I'm going to maybe send you an email.
I would love to, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd love to actually develop on that conversation. Actually, it's a really good thing you brought that to the table, just because that is in our strategy looking forward, prevention of violence against women. So we are actually building on it. We're working with collaborative partners. So please, the timing is absolutely perfect. So let's have that conversation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. And just a big thank you to Joe Loma and Hannah for those presentations and the discussion. So thanks for joining us today. Just remember, I'm going to bestow a 10-minute break on everybody, and then we're going to come back and we'll just look at the health and housing update and the innovation showcase update. So do you want to take 10 minutes and then we'll come back? So, sorry, Christina, I didn't spot you.
To wrap up.
Sorry, you wrap up.
You wrap up. Obviously, I did the intro, and I just wanted to.
Feel free.
So sorry, I know
Please
we
do.
have to, but this is really important. This is our fourth bold ambition, and I just wanted to say we do have a joint commitment around tackling systemic discrimination with a focus on anti-racism, which is why we've had that focus today, just to bring it back to our own strategy. But I just want to say this is the business case. This is about retention of the largest employed and unpaid sector in South Yorkshire. This is not a nice to do. This is absolutely business critical. From a health and wellbeing point of view, when we look into health and wellbeing, if you were to ask everybody what is a healthiest workplace or what is the unhealthiest workplace, we did that in Doncaster. It's culture. It's not being discriminated against. It's having values and behaviours that people can thrive in. Nobody mentioned, health and wellbeing interventions. Those things, that culture thing, is absolutely critical to the success of that. And then the other thing that I just wanted to highlight, following on from Mariana's criteria, maybe we need to review this, is what this demonstrates is partnership is not passive. partnership is an active space. So if we are going to collaborate and continue to work together, all of us need to step up, lean in and give our time, energy and passion and money, resources to these things if we all jointly committed to them. So that's how I wanted to finish. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Great summary. So what I'll do is, shall we come back at 11:50? So everyone online, if we come back at 11:50 and we'll finish off our agenda. So thank you. Okay. So thank you for that. Okay, we've got two more agenda items to cover off this morning as we head into this afternoon. So the first one is we should have Julian and Rebecca to talk with us around the health and housing update. So we've got 20 minutes for this agenda item. So if you want to give us sort of a 10-minute update, then we can have a big discussion for 10 minutes as well. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Brilliant.
Thanks everyone. Thanks so much for having us. So I'm Julianne Hall. I'm chair of the Healthy Homes and Homelessness work stream of the South Yorkshire Housing Partnership, also a director at South Yorkshire Housing Association, and presenting with me is Rebecca Slack. I'm sure many of you know Rebecca, Senior Development Manager for Housing at Simca and a key member of both the partnership and the work stream. On with the mic, that's not going to work. So we'll very briefly cover a bit of a reminder of why home matters. It'll not be anything you've not heard before, it will be a reminder. And we'll talk a bit about the offer of the housing partnership, what we might ask of this group and your organisations. Rebecca's going to talk about how the work of the work stream supports the wider strategic context, and then give a flavour of what our priorities are at the minute in the Healthy Homes and Homelessness work stream. So a kind of core principle of the South Yorkshire Housing Partnership is this idea that home is absolutely where we start from, and that we cannot achieve great health, great educational attainment, employment, become active participants in our communities if we don't have a good roof over our head, feel safe, there's security of tenure, we're not being disrupted by antisocial behaviour, the home's warm, all the rest of it. So we fundamentally believe that. And so when we talk about the ambition of the region to become the healthiest, home is absolutely critical to that. That's unquestionable for us. Now, I'm hoping this video is going to run. I'm going to show you a very short video just to bring a bit of lived experience voice into the room. It's made by Shelter. And they do great co-production work with children. It's from a temporary accommodation. It's about temporary accommodation, but when you watch it, listen to the messages the children are telling us about home more generally, and those things in our home that matter when it comes to going on to flourish. So if someone could hit play, please. Thank you. Can move it on now. There's so much in that film, but I thought it was a really important one to show because, you know, of our bold ambition on early years and kids' readiness for school, it's so easy to forget that stuff, and it really, really matters. Home is where we start from. So if you could move me on. So beyond that kind of work of the Housing Partnership on making sure all homes in the region are good, we also have a real focus on the development of new supported housing supply. So this is housing that many of us might need as we age, young people with a learning disability or autism might need as they move through transition, people leaving inpatient psychiatric care. I'll not go through this slide in detail, but National Housing Federation did some good research last year about the dwindling supply of supported housing nationally, and you can see the numbers there. And so part of the work of the partnership is to really work together and collectively and with broader partnerships to ensure that decline in supply isn't true for our region. So that's part of our work as well. Next slide, please. So some of you will know about the partnership, some of you won't. So our partnership, the Housing Partnership, is fairly mature now. It's been around a good few years. The intention of the partnership is to make it easier to work and integrate with housing at quite a strategic level. We know we're a big sector. There's lots of parts to us. We can be difficult to understand. So that's the first driver, is to really make it easy to serve the region and the governance structures within the region. But we also have some real collective might. We have leverage to relationships, to funding, and we want to use that again to serve the region. We have 3 work streams. The first is supply of affordable housing. You would expect that to be in there. The second is to support the ambition on a low carbon future. And the third is the work stream I chair, which is healthy homes and homelessness. And I think one of the great things about our regional housing partnership is the kind of real emphasis on all 3 of those things. You know, we can often be guilty in housing of really pushing hard on supply because that's where the real issue is. But actually our housing partnership is equally committed to those three priorities. Next slide, please. And I guess what we can offer the region is that kind of a coordinated partnership. We have 14 member associations. So every housing association in our region is in the partnership and really active in terms of membership. We also have the 4 local authorities. So colleagues from housing and development in the local authorities are active members. Between us, we own, manage 130 social homes, so you get a sense of the scale and what the potential might be on driving up, you know, that work around healthy homes and improvement. We add 116 million to the regional economy, and we're a big employer. And we have lots of housing expertise within our organisation. And many of these are people that they're boots in the ground in communities, in homes, neighbourhood officers, housing officers. So loads of link with the work we heard about this morning and bold ambition for more generally. If you can move me on, please. So that's what we offer. And I guess what we want you to think about as we finish the presentation is just, you know, how can the ICP or that, you know, that revised structure support the delivery of the work that Rebecca's going to talk about, and how could your individual organisations also support and partner with us? And that could look like embedding in kind of governance frameworks, commissioning frameworks, or it could be through quite practical things like joint secondments, a shared research or support with facilitation and resourcing. I'm going to hand you over to Rebecca now. Thank you.
Thanks, Julianne. Yeah, before I go on to the healthy homes and homelessness work stream that Julianne's just mentioned and what the 4 priorities are in there, I just thought it'd be useful. Can you just move on? Thanks. It'd be useful just to, and Marianne touched on this earlier, so what the strategic alignment is, what work Simca's doing that kind of feeds and plays into those work areas and the work of South Yorkshire Housing Partnership. The top one you'll all be familiar with, the right to safe, secure, warm housing for everybody. That's a bit of a given, no one would argue about that, and the Mayor's ambition for South Yorkshire to be the healthiest in the region. But looking also at health is wealth, this which was launched in the summer. There's a particular aspiration in there around living in decent quality housing that's affordable and pleasant neighbourhoods and supports well-being. Specific references to reducing homelessness, sleeping and hidden homelessness, and also adopting strategies to put health, equity and sustainability at the centre of planning. And that could also be planning housing, accelerating housing growth as well. So there's a lot of work happening in the region around increasing supply of housing, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. There's also the 10-year growth plan, safe and vibrant neighbourhoods, quality, sustainable, affordable housing, including healthy homes, retrofit and energy efficiency. Next slide, please. We've got some opportunities in the integrated settlement, which we're currently working through at the moment, working with government about what those outcomes might look like. Housing delivery is a key one. So we've just found out we've got a new housing growth program through the National Housing Delivery Fund. So working through the outcomes of that. So that replaces our Brownfield Housing Fund. But what is new is the health duty, but also the National Plan to End Homelessness, which was launched in the middle of December. And that provides a new focus for EMSA's established mayoral strategic authorities, which are now being called, and gives them a convening role. And we've talked a lot about collaboration, but it very specifically talks about the need for greater collaboration between housing, health, skills, and other public services if we're going to prevent homelessness. Mariana mentioned South Yorkshire strategy. Again, this is under development. SIMCA are leading on this. Shed loads in there about health, long-term ambitions. Again, it's healthiest region in the country, but it highlights root causes of poor health and very much focus on housing as well. And that key links into giving every child best start in life with the need for a warm, safe home. One that you're probably not familiar is the South Yorkshire Strategic Place Partnership. This has been around for 2 years now, and it's a strategic partnership between SIMCA and Homes England, who are the government's housing agency. The mayor chairs that, and it's predominantly it's SIMCA colleagues, Homes England, the local authority, and also South Yorkshire Housing Partnership. Larry Gold, who's the chair, attends that, and that's predominantly around accelerating housing growth. But there is huge emphasis also on increasing social and affordable homes, and we've also made sure that there's reference in there and an aspiration about increasing the supported and specialist housing that Julian's just been talking around. We've also got an additional so the Social and Affordable Homes Programme, there's a new 10-year programme coming out. People might know about it. There's it's 10 years, which is great. It used to be 5 years, so there's that longevity. It's also far more money is involved in that. But what it gives SIMCA is through that strategic place partnership, we have a greater oversight of how that money is being spent. And again, when we did the mayor's priorities of how that affordable homes programme is going to be spent, we made sure there's 10% in there around supported and specialists as well. So we've got a greater role in that housing delivery programme. Next slide, please. So National Plan to End Homelessness. This is new. We've done some work in SIMCA, working with partners, including South Yorkshire Housing Partnership, over the last couple of years to look at what SIMCA's role might be in preventing homelessness and working with the statutory agencies involved, sector. But where we've got to is we've got a series of recommendations, clear overlaps with health. But we'd got to the stage last summer where we hadn't really got any capacity and how we were going to drive that forward. We're now in a really good position. The Plan to End Homelessness, what has come along with that is we've been allocated £1 million over 3 years, totally new money, so new direction on that. So we've got a real drive to move that forward. Just the plan itself makes a lot of references to impact of homelessness on health and well-being. There's lots in there about hospital discharge, lots in there about cross-sector duty to collaborate, and really stresses the importance of EMSAs and health working together to prevent homelessness. It highlights the impacts on health. It talks about specifically, if we're talking about early years, fewer missed school days are required and the need to reduce use of temporary accommodation. So yeah, so we're working through that at the moment. We've still got to agree the outcomes with the government about how we're going to spend that money. But what they want us to do is build on some of the research that we've got, start convening partners together to look at some sort of framework and what focus areas are going to look at. So next slide, please. So just to give a bit of context on developing the work plan of the Healthy Homes and Homelessness work stream and how this came about. In tandem with the work around homelessness, SIMCA commissioned an organisation called HACT that some of you may have heard of about a year and a half ago to come in and bring housing and health colleagues together to look around some various areas and where there might be a focus for health and housing working better together, and what might be some interventions. We had 5, we talked, I think people have talked a lot about how many stakeholders we've got around the room and how we map all of that. We had 5 really good online workshops back in May, I've got to get my years right now, May 24, that HACT facilitated, and they looked at these 5 areas. And I think at each online session we had about 50 people attending. They were really, really well attended, and that was from leadership but also frontline workers as well, and the people operational staff. We followed that up with a leadership summit, so that was a bit more focused to get the decision makers in the room. We had loads of people wanting to attend, had to turn people away. So in the end, we landed, I think we had about 50 people there. The mayor opened up that session, and it was really to drill down some of those discussions and determine what the priorities should be and where we could really maybe have 3 or 4 priorities that we wanted to work together on, rather than trying to solve the whole world. What do we want to look at? So next slide, please. And these are the work plan priorities and objectives that HACT have been really good. Drew, we've got a whole Gantt chart behind this of activities that we've got to do. So it was a little bit overwhelming, but loads to do. But this in a nutshell are the 4 areas. So the first one is about establishing a South Yorkshire Healthy Homes network and building a regional collaborative network. It's that word again, isn't it? Collaboration to align and drive healthy homes activity across the region. So there's a bit of mapping to do because we know there's lots of work happening, but we haven't got it all in one place. Where's the best practice? Where do we need to bring some more innovation in? Potentially looking at a digital platform. There's lots of work going on around retrofit advice across the region. Again, it's bringing that in one place. And there's an ambition there about having a flagship pilot. The next one is embedding health and strategic housing policy. So this is about, we talked about when we're talking about housing growth and delivering more homes, and that supported housing agenda, where are health around the table? So we have the strategic place partnership. There's nobody from the ICB or health sitting around that. That might be an obvious place where health might, and there's some big regeneration, place-based regeneration projects going on that Simca's kind of leading on, like the Don Valley Corridor. Again, where was health around that? We need to bring health into that. So, and then there's other things around, there's an aspiration as well to replicate some of the work across the country. So in Greater Manchester, they have a tripartite agreement between housing, health and social care. That's something we potentially want to look at, or something based on that. Again, it's quite ambitious, but I think it's something we should aspire to. The next one, and this is probably where a lot of the homelessness stuff sits, strengthen health and housing and frontline collaboration. When we had the summit, there was a lot of talk about homelessness, and and Drew captured it quite well. He said when people are being discharged from a health setting, the first question should be, are they returning to a safe, warm home? Is it safe for them to go back to that home? So there's something about developing a South Yorkshire duty to refer to homelessness organisations, housing options, services. And again, it's that whole discharge conversation. We're looking at programmes of shared training between frontline staff in housing health to look at those referral routes. And there's a lot of work, particularly on the homelessness side, that we want to do around pathways out of prison, pathways out of hospital and health settings. So there's a lot of work there about the priorities going around single pathways, which health will be key to. And then the last one is embed housing in neighbourhood health models. I can send stuff. Before I came, I realised we hadn't sent you the HACT study report, so it might be worth resending that, just so people are, we did bring this last year to the ICP board, for those that were here or still on the board, and that kind of work plan has come out of that. We were sent away to look at what the priorities might be, where the focus might be. So this is the culmination of that work, which has now been adopted by South Yorkshire Housing Partnership as their work stream. So just to revisit on the last slide, the proposition. So again, as Julianne said, it's how this board can contribute to that. Simca's doing, obviously involved in that, South Yorkshire Housing Partnership. But is there anything more that this group can do, and organisations, about helping drive that forward? So it might be, we just put some examples on there, potentially secondment, any research, help with data, support with facilitation, etc. But it's kind of an open discussion.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for those presentations. I will open up for comments and questions. Would you like to go first? Great.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We know that housing is a huge element of being healthy, and it was one of the reasons why we in Sheffield had Julianne as a member of this board, because we recognise as a health and wellbeing board that we couldn't talk about health without the housing element in it. So it's really good to see, the South Yorkshire element of it. I'm just wondering, how does this all kind of play and interact with what is happening at place level? Because, for example, in Sheffield, we've part of the Homeward program, so we've had quite a lot of funding for that. So what are the interactions? Because lots of what you've both Julianne and Rebecca have said really resonate, but it is stuff that is happening in Sheffield, and I'm sure that the other places will recognise bits of it, that they all of it that they are doing. So how, because when in this context we always talk about what's the added value of this compared to what's happening, and from the presentation it's not clear. I'm sure that you are having those conversations, but it's not clear from the presentation itself whether those conversations, I'm sure they are, but it would be actually good to understand how it interacts with what's already happening and other projects, other funding, so that because otherwise there is a risk of a repetition of work. I'm sure you are addressing.
Respond to that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, there is some connection. Thanks for that question. It isn't clear from the presentation. So in terms of governance, James Clark from Sheffield sits on the Housing Partnership. He's a very active member, and in fact he brought a presentation on Homeward to the last meeting, and there were housing associations in the partnership that are working with Homeward, and a real ask, because obviously there's a need for more homes for Homeward, and ask there. So we're definitely thinking about how we bring that work from the different local authority areas up through. And then in terms of the governance of our work stream, we have a local authority representation on the work stream as well, both really good representation from public health colleagues. That's always been, Greg used to chair the previous iteration, so we've always had that very strong public health membership, but more recently more broad membership from housing colleagues in local authorities.
Can I just
add to that? Yeah, we just need to pick up the pace a bit, please.
So can I just add about the Homewood? So what I didn't mention, just because there's so much going on. So we did have a South Yorkshire mayoral homelessness task group, and when Homewoods was launched, we realised there's an alignment. So Homewoods sit on that task group, and what we've always said, we've kept a watching eye. I sit on one of their governance structures. Is once Homewood, we'll learn from Homewoods, and we'll take on some of the stuff that's happening. What's working well in Sheffield, we'll look at how we can cascade it across the whole of South Yorkshire. So we do have those regular conversations.
Okay, thanks. I've got Greg, then Steve, and then Gail online, and then we'll need to probably move to sum up.
Cheers, very quickly. Very good to see. Yes, I did used to chair it, but basically I stopped because I've way too many part-time jobs. Dead helpful to see. I agree with you on the frontline collaboration. You framed it there on the discharge from hospital bit. I'd kind of be really pushy. It's not just the discharge from hospital bit. It's the preventing people becoming poorly in the first place bit. I know you'll be in that space, but just to emphasise that. The housing enabled model, enabled health models, I agree. I can think of 15 different versions of neighbourhood health. There isn't a sweet spot to bring all of those together, but I agree with you that housing very much needs to be in that one. Very quickly, damp and mold is cold that kills people, so don't neglect the cold bit, please. And lastly, health as in healthcare delivery system or health as in outcomes. They are different, and don't mangle them together, please. Thanks.
Thanks.
Should we just take all 3 points and then come back to you to respond if that's okay? So Steve, if you want to go.
Again, very quickly. So I think Angela's challenge is absolutely the right space. It's about how we sort of wire this stuff together. This is a massive issue strategically for us. There's amazing work going on, but in some senses, I think what you're saying is we're on the foothills of this work still, aren't we, in terms of where we get to. There's no one bit of this system that actually can deliver some of this stuff. There's some South Yorkshire bodies that are heavily involved in this and will be more involved in this. Simca is a good example of where its role is going up and up and up, and its investment and stuff like that. There was a little bit of a plea in terms of where the NHS is and around this work, and reflections around things like joint commissioning frameworks, the interplay between 4 local authorities, interplay between the providers, and we could go on, couldn't we? So the ability to make sense of this and map this space into other spaces is massively important and plays all the way back into Mariana's original conversation. And if we're going to make this work in terms of getting the system conditions right and address Greg's point around neighbourhood health and the rest of it, we've got to find a way of locating this work within the wider partnership work. It's like you get one opportunity to get this right, don't you? If we've not nailed this down in 6 months' time in terms of that wiring, then it will be a lament for us, because we'll always be sort of like retrofitting this stuff together. So I think it's massively important. It's massively important in the context of what Mariana was saying earlier.
And absolutely one of the biggest determinants of health, isn't it? Of good health. Gail, just take your comment question.
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep it brief. Gail Elvidge, Yorkshire Sport Foundation. Thanks for that. It was a really emotive start as well to the beginning of that presentation, and so powerful. Really just an offer to connect, not fully understanding the full scope of your work, but when you talk about the neighbourhood and the environment around a home, opportunities to be physically active and for children to play are so important. We have someone that works with us at Yorkshire Sport who gets involved in planning conversations around active design and how to be pragmatic in, within tight budgets of how to build in as much opportunity in new building schemes to be active, because we know that it's a bit of an area that can be a bit of a tick box and where knowledge is limited. So just an offer to connect after this meeting if you want to.
Thanks, Gail.
Thank you.
So just comment from him and I'll come back to you to respond if that's okay. So two things. The first one, for those online, there was a breeze in the room as everyone picked up the pen when you mentioned there was £1 million worth of new funding. I don't know. I think subconsciously.
Yeah, lots of people.
So obviously there was some energy in the room, definitely, when we got to that. So that's good. Energy is always a good thing. And then you asked a question about engaging with health, and that's always a difficult question to respond to. So the answer is always it depends. So it can be the ICB, but we tend to work, as Angela was saying, around at place level. So, you'll find someone who knows all the estates issues in Rotherham, but they won't know the whole South Yorkshire picture, and it'll be the same in each of our 4 places. But also it is something where at place level, it's probably only in the last 4 or 5 years we've really got under the skin of working with housing. So I think there's great benefits and great opportunities still to be taken. So thanks for flagging that up. And I suppose as the ICB, we don't have a South Yorkshire sort of estates function, housing function working through. We tend to work on primary care estates, but you might find the hospital provider, as you talked about the discharge scheme, might be a better organisation to engage with. So I think whatever project you're working on, it might be a case of coming to us and we can point you in that direction, but there'll never be one person who knows it all.
Yeah, and I think we found that with both the housing and health study when we're engaging, and also the homelessness stuff as well. Yeah.
And is there anything else you want to respond to on any of the other points?
In terms of the £1 million, so we are trying to work. It kind of came a little bit. We put in an ask, but to be honest, I wasn't expecting to get that money, so we didn't really get an inkling of it until the budget was announced, and it was a bit like, oh, okay. We were playing with 100k at that time, so it was a whole new ball game. So what we're doing is we're going back and talking to local authorities, because it's got to fit with their homelessness strategy. So it's bringing the 4 local authorities in. So I mentioned that we did have, it's kind of still there, a South Yorkshire Mayoral Homelessness Task Group, but we're looking about how so that task group kind of, I guess the task was doing the research and the piece of work and getting the recommendations, which we've got now. The next task is how we spend that money and how it's in the right way. So we're looking at resetting that task group. So we may be back in touch we'll look at the members that are already on it, but again, it might be getting the right people from health on that group as well.
Okay, we can help.
So watch this space.
I suppose the other thing, Stephen's point, and probably the one to capture as well, is around as we move to the refocused ICP as we go through, this absolutely has to be part of our agenda, doesn't it? So we can take that into discussion. Steve, should we take that as an action to take that into those discussions? Is that okay?
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Right then, last but not least, Gemma, over to you. We have the Innovation Showcase update.
Yeah, I'll just wait for my slide to come up. That's not me. There we go. Okay, so hi everyone. For those I don't know, my name's Gemma. I'm the South Yorkshire Innovation Hub Director, which is a partnership with Health Innovation Yorkshire and Humber and the ICB. Cast your minds back to November 2024. We held a really good innovation showcase and we put an open call out to the entire system and we're overwhelmed with the amount of response that we got. So we only had a half-day event. We couldn't cram everybody in. We managed to cram about 50 people in, 50 examples into that event, but there was still so much that came to us after that event as well. And Oliver really helpfully at that event came over and said to me, Gemma, I love this, but I want it bigger, better and bolder. And I was okay, grand. Yeah. So hence, we are today here to talk about the South Yorkshire Research and Innovation Expo, which has been scheduled for the 5th and 6th of May and will be held at Magna in Rotherham. Next slide, please. So what is it? So I really took Oliver's ask on board, really. So it's going to be a really bold 2-day event that's going to be delivered in partnership with not only Health Innovation Yorkshire and Humber, the ICB, and also the NIHR National Institute for Health Research and the Applied Research Collaborative. But it'll convene research and innovation aligning to the ICB's research and innovation strategy. It'll be the largest health and innovation and research gathering in South Yorkshire. We've got space for over 400 delegates. There's going to be plenaries, innovation labs, workshops and roundtables. What we want is for this to be really real for people. We want people to come and take away things that they can absolutely implement within their own organisations. There will be space for exhibition and marketplace and perhaps a senior leadership dinner, but we really will align this to the Bold Ambitions framework like we did with the Innovation Showcase as well. Next slide, please. So who attended the event previously and who attends Health Innovation Network events? So we're looking at quite a broad brush approach to this. It's anyone really who has an interest in research innovation, but we are going to be looking at protecting spaces for researchers and academics. We really want a big involvement from our voluntary sector in this as well, to really hear those patient voices and those community voices in there as well. We do want to attract local and national policymakers, as again, Oliver asked me, he was like, you know, get this in the media, Gemma, you know, get it all over socials and things. So hopefully this will be a really good forum to generate some good news stories and put South Yorkshire on the map. But like I said, we really want to focus on that lived experience and what it means to be a citizen in South Yorkshire and what are some of the good things and best practice that we're spreading across the region. Obviously, we can't do this without our innovation and our industry partners, so there is going to be a heavy industry focus in this as well. But we're more than happy to open up the door to industry and figure out how we can work together going forwards. Next one, please. I don't need to remind you of what the strategic themes are, but we will focus around the bold ambitions, and we'll have a research theme and an innovation theme that will run concurrently, and both will cover all of the 4 bold ambitions. Next one, please. So what do we hope that this will achieve? So we're really looking at scalable innovations as well. We're going to be featuring a lot of the innovations that we've been able to support across South Yorkshire over the last few years. And we're looking to think about how we can scale those across the region further. But like I said, it's really rooted in those practical solutions. So what can we do? Highlighting and recognising the big change that is happening within the health system at the moment, how we can build those partnerships to really take forward research and innovation. So building those lasting collaborations, but that cross-sector element is really important for us as well. I've talked about co-production and lived experience. That national visibility for us is massively important. I think we don't shout enough about what South Yorkshire does and how brilliant it is. Being a Scouser, it's a bit weird me talking about that, but this is my job. So, but we also want to help to accelerate the delivery of the Bold Ambitions goals as well through this event. Next, please. So like I said, events like this cost money, but we've been really grateful that Braun have come on board to be our main event sponsor. We have Optum, who are sponsoring one of our themes, and Henderson's Relish have also come on board as well, which is fantastic. But we are looking to secure some more investment before we can go live with delegate bookings, just to minimise from a risk perspective. So if anyone does have any connections with any industry partnerships, or anyone you think would be interested in contributing to this event, please do let me know, as yeah, we're looking to secure some more investment to take the event forward. Next one, please. So like I said, the agenda will be branched into two sections, so research and innovation. Our NIHR partners are crafting the research sessions, and we at Health Innovation Yorkshire and Humber are crafting the innovation sessions. Now, as part of the innovation sessions, we are about to do a call out for content. So I'll circulate that round to this board, but immediately I was thinking I'd love to be able to feature some of the housing stuff. The Women's Network would also fit really nicely into that. So please do respond to that, and then we'll have a panel who'll go through and look and try and craft the agenda. I imagine there'll be so much that we won't be able to feature during the day. So we'll look to replicate some of our bite-sized webinar series that we've been doing over the last year to try and fill as much of that as we can. But we're really looking at panel discussions and workshops, case studies, but like I said, we're focusing on that real population impact as well. So we are going to have a large exhibition. We've got space for 20 exhibitors within there, but we've also got lots of digital space in the building as well. I don't know if people have been to Magna before. It's quite a space to hold an event, and some of the digital assets that they've been able to provide us have been fantastic. I just want to shout them out as well, because they have done an amazing job trying to get the costs of this event to as low as they possibly can, and we really felt that our mission sort of aligned with Magna's in terms of the STEM side of things and the giving back to community, so that's why we chose Magna. But we do want to include our voluntary sector organisations as part of the exhibition as well, and continue that sort of lived experience theme within that. Next one, please. Yeah, so if you have any further ideas or any connections that you would like to make and involve in the event, please do drop me a line. Like I say, I'll send out that call for content, and yeah, we'll look forward to welcoming you to the event in May. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gemma. So let's open it up. Any questions or comments? Sorry, David, I didn't see you there.
Just back, Gemma, as the executive sponsor for this topic, but also chairing the South Yorkshire Digital Research and Innovation. I think we've come a long way in 3 years, and there are a number of other opportunities that have come to light. We're progressing on an academic health partnership. We know that Simca also has been identified as a local innovation partner as well for some. So we've been really successful in the funding, and I guess what we haven't done is been able to communicate that. We've got the Children's Health Technology Centre that's about to open in the spring, so it's really, I think it is a good opportunity. The timing is also quite timely because of all the things that are going on, and I hope people can find time in your diary to come along. Thank you.
Stephen and then Kate.
It does sound brilliant, Gemma, I must say. I mean, last year's was brilliant, but this is like a step on, isn't it? It's like it's industrial, isn't it, in terms
Tell
of
me about it.
well done. So just building on David's point, I think the ability to, because we're not short of assets, are we, across our system? It's just a matter of actually sort of like, well, celebrating them, as Dave says, but also trying to find the glue that binds them together in terms of the ecosystem. So the links into the emerging Child Health Technology Centre, but particularly the thinking through about the emerging academic health partnership, massively important, which wasn't my substantive point. My substantive point was actually my experience of this stuff is we're not short of ideas, but it's like the massive leap from ideas and innovation into adoption. And I sort of think that we could be special and different if we had a real sort of drill down on how we could sort of take some of the fruit of this work and think through exactly through this expo. How do we sort of like get more larger scale adoption of some of this brilliant innovation? Reflection.
Absolutely agree, and I think that's one of the things that we sort of recognise that this event will try to achieve. You know, there's lots of events that focus on strategy and senior leadership event, but what we want is to really root this in. Well, how do we actually do it? You know, we know we've got lots of assets, like you've said, and trying to fit them all into a 2-day. I mean, we could have done a week-long event, but I think that might have put me in an early grave. It will be about that. How do we make it real? And every session that we're going into, we really want the speakers and the panels to focus on, right, well, what's the next step? How do we do some of this? Rather than keeping it at that strategic level, which is really important, bringing it down into the right, let's crack on. Let's figure out how we do this together.
Thank you. I'm just going to take Kate and Christine and then come back to Gemma to respond and sum up, if that's okay. Sorry, did Greg, did your hand up as well? Yeah. Well, Kate, Christine, and then Greg, and then we'll come back.
Just want to say, yeah, I really enjoyed it last year. I was one of the lucky 50. It's like getting a Willy Wonka ticket. I'm really pleased. I represent the voluntary sector, so I'm really pleased that you want to see voluntary sector there. So I'm part of the BCSE Alliance as well. So if you want me to get it out there and see what exhibitors can go. And in regard to a suggestion, I think AES would be a really good one to approach. They support my charity, but they're really big in the innovation sector and what they're doing for South Yorkshire. So I can get you an intro.
Yeah, please do.
Thanks.
Christine, then Greg.
Thanks, Gemma. I just wanted to echo the point around sort of spread, adoption and spread. I think Loma gave a really good example in her thing about how we didn't invest time in recreating our own anti-racism framework in health in South Yorkshire, but we're under a lot of pressure to do that. Everybody wants their own. So I suppose I do think that's a strategic conversation. And so I think it'd be great if we could spend some time there. Is that how can we stop always wanting to invent our own and amplify and take the work of others and get it out there? But that does take leadership and it does take a strategic approach. So I would really welcome that, Jim.
Okay.
Particularly in the workforce space.
Yeah, definitely.
Greg, do you want to come in there?
It's very quick. I'll try and make it for 3 thoughts. One, there's a sort of really tricky space on health innovation or health innovation. Will our innovation speak to child poverty? Will it speak to crap housing, air quality, etc.? That's a sort of a social model of health innovation. It's no less important than the millions of people that will want to be there selling us gizmos, gadgets and wearables, which bluntly do not have any population impact. So I'm happy to help do some stuff in that space. I don't know thought, but it's gone. I'll email you later.
Share it with us, Greg. Gemma, do you want to respond or?
No, again, just any suggestions I think for me are really helpful. I think we've got a rough structure that we're looking at the moment. But like I say, we'll try and include as much as we can do. Just bear with us, but we do need that investment to be able to take this to that delegate opening stage. So if you do have any connections or any coppers in the back of the pocket, please do let me know. Thanks.
Thanks, Gemma. So just to summarise then, so I think the ask of the board is to champion the expo across their organisations and networks, and if you have funding, then speak to Gemma. Support sponsorship conversations where possible or link into sponsors, and try to have attendance and visibly support the event and show leadership commitment across the system. They're the key asks, aren't they?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. That was great. Thank you. So just finishing off our agenda, I haven't received any other business, but just if anyone's got any urgent items, happy to take urgent items if anyone's got any. No, all okay. So we'll close the meeting there. Next meeting is at the 24th of March. Venue to be confirmed. Thank you for your time, everybody. Thank you to all our presenters today. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.